My name is Anna, and what I'm about to share is something that changed my life forever. It was during a business trip to San Francisco that everything took an unexpected turn. My husband, Mark, and I had been married for 12 years. While our life together was stable, it lacked the spark it once had. Mark always supported my career, but I could sense an emotional distance growing between us. This trip would become the beginning of a story I never imagined living. The story of my life with Mark wasn't one of dramatic fights or betrayals. It was one of slow, almost imperceptible drift. The demands of work and routine had dulled the intensity of what we once shared. Mark, ever the kind and steady presence, often focused on his job while I poured myself into mine. We spoke less, touched less, and connected only on the surface level. The love was still there, but it felt like it was buried under layers of habit and expectation. This work trip felt like a chance to breathe, to reflect. Yet, I didn't expect that it would lead to someone, who would turn my world upside down. On the flight to San Francisco, I found myself seated next to a woman who exuded confidence and warmth. Her name was Riley, and from the moment we exchanged hellos, there was an ease to our conversation. Her jet black hair was swept into a loose braid that framed her sharp, angular features, and her green eyes sparkled with curiosity. She wore a fitted blazer and dark jeans that highlighted her confident posture, exuding a magnetism that was hard to ignore. As the flight progressed, I felt an unfamiliar excitement. Her laughter, her candor, and the way she genuinely listened made me feel like more than just Mark's wife or the project manager. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Her voice was smooth, carrying an undertone of warmth that made every word feel intentional. When she laughed, her smile reached her eyes, crinkling them slightly and lighting up her entire face. That night, after the day's meetings, I spotted Riley at the hotel lounge. She waved me over, her smile easy and inviting, and what began as a quick hello turned into hours of conversation. We talked about everything from our childhood dreams to the music we loved. Riley's energy was infectious, and her curiosity about life was intoxicating. The dim lighting of the lounge created a cozy ambience. Riley leaned forward, her voice dropping as she shared stories about her past. Her expressive gestures and the spark in her eyes drew me in, and soon we were laughing as though we had known each other for years. She rested her chin on her hand, her eyes fixed on me as I spoke, as if I were the most captivating person in the room. When I finally returned to my room, my heart was racing. It wasn't just attraction, it was a feeling of connection that I hadn't felt in years. Unable to sleep, I decided to visit the hotel gym the next morning. To my surprise, Riley was there, her ponytail bouncing as she jogged on the treadmill. Her athletic tank top revealed toned arms, and her confident stride on the machine was mesmerizing. She waved me over, and we began running side by side. It felt natural, comfortable, but also electric. Her quick glances and easy smiles made the mundane seem extraordinary. By the time we left the gym, the tension between us was undeniable. As we stood by the water fountain, catching our breath, she brushed a strand of hair from her face and smiled. "Looks like we're starting the day right," she said, her voice light and teasing. My stomach fluttered at her words, and I found myself looking forward to the next encounter. That evening, after a conference dinner, Riley and I found ourselves wandering through the hotel's quiet garden. The soft glow of the garden lights and the stillness of the night created an atmosphere of intimacy. The scent of blooming jasmine filled the air, and the cool breeze brushed against our skin. We talked about the things that scared us, the dreams we didn't dare voice. Her words felt like a mirror, reflecting parts of me I had forgotten. She reached out, her fingers brushing mine lightly. The touch sent a spark through me, and I looked up to meet her gaze. Her green eyes were searching, filled with a quiet intensity. When she leaned in to kiss me, I didn't pull away. Her lips were soft and tentative at first, but as I responded, the kiss deepened. It was a kiss that ignited something inside me, something I thought I'd lost. The warmth of her lips and the soft touch of her hand against my cheek made the world around us disappear. We lingered, caught in a moment that felt like it would last forever. The following days were a whirlwind of stolen moments. We shared quiet breakfasts, exchanged fleeting touches in crowded hallways, and even took a detour one evening to watch the sunset by the bay. Each interaction deepened our bond, and every glance carried an unspoken promise. One evening, Riley surprised me by suggesting a drive. "There's a lookout point nearby," she said, her voice low and inviting. The view from the cliffs was breathtaking, but it was her presence beside me that made it unforgettable. Sitting close together in the car, the tension between us crackled. She reached out, her fingers trailing lightly over mine, and for a moment, the world stood still. When our hands touched on the gear shift, it felt as though the universe held its breath. When I returned home, Mark immediately sensed something was different. "You seem distant," he said one evening as we sat on the couch. I shook my head, brushing off his concern. But the truth was, my mind was elsewhere, with Riley. It wasn't long before my secrets unraveled. One night, Mark found messages from Riley on my phone. His voice trembled as he confronted me, holding the evidence in his hands. I confessed everything. I told him about Riley, about the feelings I couldn't ignore, and about the choices I'd made. His heartbreak was palpable, and for the first time, I truly understood the magnitude of my betrayal. I met Riley one last time to end things. We sat in a small cafe, the air between us heavy with unspoken words. "I can't do this anymore," I said, tears streaming down my face. Riley nodded, her eyes glistening with sadness. "I understand," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. As we shared a final embrace, I felt the weight of what I was losing. Her arms around me felt like a safe haven, and the softness of her hair against my cheek was a comfort I didn't want to let go of. But I also knew that it was the right decision, for Mark, for my marriage, and for myself. Back home, I tried to rebuild what I had broken. But the damage was too deep. Mark couldn't forgive me, and after weeks of painful conversations, we decided to part ways. As I packed my things and moved into a small apartment, I reflected on the choices that had led me here. Looking out at the city lights from my new home, I felt a mix of regret and hope. My time with Riley had awakened something in me, but it had also cost me everything I held dear. Now, as I face the future alone, I am determined to rediscover who I am and to build a life rooted in honesty and self-awareness. Sometimes, the choices we make in moments of weakness reveal the parts of ourselves we've neglected. While I can't undo the past, I can learn from it, and that is the first step toward healing.